Wonderful, wonderful. That was one of the first songs where I just decided that God's singing to me all the time. And I feel like that's what's happening. You know, I don't really know what that song's about. I've loved it since it came out. But there's some powerful feeling about finding home, right? And for me, it's about coming back to the truth of who we are. And so when music just touches you on such a deeper level. I'm comfortable up on stage. I can talk. I can talk forever. Everybody here knows I can, which I will not do. But I promise. But I always wanted to sing, right? Like that was the thing that I really wanted to sing because I was always so moved. So I adore John. So let's give it up for him one more time, even though I love him. We'll know that was for him. Yeah. All right, so today my talk is decisions. Don't you feel like life is like that sometimes? Like from the minute we open our eyes, like I feel like, I've got to choose. Sometimes I get to the end of the day and I'm like tired just from all the things I had to decide. And for a while there, I thought it was just because I was the mom and I had to take care of everything for the family, right? So I'm deciding everything for the family all the time. But the truth is that we are all like that. That from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, we are choosing something. We have to decide something. And I know and sometimes they're small things and sometimes they're big things and it can cause us to get into a big spin, right? Our head can spin a little bit from this. I came across a little thing in my preparation for this. There was a man who was talking to his son. His son said, "Dad, you've been married to Mom for 56 years. What's your secret? How have you had such a successful marriage for so long?" And he said, "Well, son, when we got married, we decided that your mom was going to make all the day-to-day decisions and that I was going to be responsible for all the big decisions." And he said, "Well, how did that go? How's that worked for you?" And the dad said, 56 years and I haven't had to make a big decision yet. Notice I told that story the day my husband is not here. So, yeah, there we go. It's not my story, but maybe it should be. Okay. All right, so what I love about this and what we're talking about today is that this is a pure Science of Mind 101 talk. This is like a pure cut into the core, the foundation of our teaching. This is where it starts. This is like the thing that I get so jazzed about because there's power in this teaching. And there's power in this program, and if you lean into this and you work it and you accept it and you start to live according to this truth, then your life will change. The things that you do not want to experience will lessen and will fade away. And you will start to create more of those experiences and more of those opportunities and more of those things that you are wanting, whether you are even conscious that you want them or not. Because there are desires that are kind of hiding behind the things in our hearts that have been planted in you from before time. And sometimes we don't even allow ourselves to recognize what it is that we want. But when we do that, when we work this philosophy, when we start to live it, when we start to focus on it, those desires start to have voice. Those desires start to reveal themselves to you. And when you put this into practice, when we do the spiritual practice to start to put it into action, you can start to see the tectonic plates of your life shift. And if there's anyone who's worked this for a while and has seen that happen, please raise your hand. See? Yeah. So I know that it works. I've been part of this philosophy for a couple of decades now, and I have not only changed and created my life, but I have seen multiple, many people start to shift and change things in their lives that they thought were immovable, that they thought they were always going to have to deal with. And you could call it miraculous. And I love that when I showed up at CSL TV 5.5 years ago, there was a saying here, "Oh, that's so usual." Right? Like they knew that there's nothing miraculous about it, because when you put your attention on something, it expands. And so today we're talking about how we do that, how we put this philosophy into practice. And it's really through our decisions. It's through our choices. It's through our thought processes. It's through our relationship to our mind. There's a couple of things here. We are a spiritual philosophy, and when it comes down to it, like I said before about the concept of God, this really is about a couple of things. One is waking up to who you are. Okay? Waking up to who you are and whose you are, by the way. Because you are God's. You belong to the infinite divine source that has created all life. and has created all things. And that's the power and presence that I call God. Fill in your blank word, right? And so there's this intelligence in the universe that has brought forth all that is. And again, I'm going to remind you, if you doubt that, go walk in nature. Look in a microscope, right? Study the anatomy and physiology of the body, because there is such intelligence down to the most cellular, molecular level of life and into the cosmos. Over the time that I was away, it was the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, right? And that was really fun for me because I missed that by a couple of years. I'm sliding into 50, so I missed it. But just reliving that, I loved that on all those. Every time we stopped on our road trip, we'd stop at night and I'd put on CNN or something that was doing all the retrospectives and watch what they did every day that week when that was happening, you know. And so you look at the cosmos and how amazing it is, and how you can tell that there's intelligence out in the cosmos and down to the most molecular space. So you need to realize that you are part of that creation, and so you are part of the divine intelligence. We need to start with that premise. Are we there? Okay, good. So that's the first thing, is to figure out who we are. The second thing is to realize how we relate to it. How do we relate to God? We relate to God through our thoughts. Let's face it, we do not relate to God in the outside world. And Jesus even taught us that. Jesus said, do not conform to the pattern of the world, right? Do not conform to the outside world. Don't pay attention to the outside world. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Jesus' teaching was that we change, that we transform what it is that we want in our life through our thought processes, through the inner world, through our mind. And so we need to realize that not only are we part of God, but the way that we connect to God is not through the outside world, not praying to something outside of us, not hoping things are going to change outside, not hoping someone's going to step up and do what we want them to do. That's not going to happen. We need to change, transform through our deep connection to God from the inside. And so it's through our thought processes, through our belief system, through how we think and relate to life that we create our experience. I've talked this whole month about how this world the outside world is a giant feedback mechanism to ourselves. And so if you want to know the status of your mind, take a look at your life. I came back from vacation and took a look at my house. Yikes. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Yeah. But that's the thing, that's the way that we do it. If you think that you are, I'm pretty good, I'm all clear. I do my meditation for 5 minutes in the morning and I say my prayer work and then I go to work, yeah, you know. And then I'm fighting with my coworker. I've got so much work I don't know how to handle anything. My kids are freaking out on me and everybody. My partner's mad at me and I can't, you know, and I can't seem to keep any money in my bank account. Yeah, but I'm good, right? You can tell when there's a disconnect. You can tell when there's a thought that's off or a belief that you're holding, whether it's conscious or subconscious, because you have to look at that feedback mechanism of your life. All right? And so that's one of the ways that we start to look and see where we are and where we want to go. The only thing we need to change is not that we need to convince our partners that they need to pick up their dirty clothes so I don't kill them, right? Or my neighbor, to whatever, you get the picture. But it's not about changing somebody on the outside, it's about knowing the truth of who you are. And the deeper we go into that, the deeper we realize what our belief is that we're holding about any topic, then you can start to see what's happening differently in your life, and then it changes. The best way to change somebody else in your world is to change yourself. And then all of a sudden it doesn't bother you anymore. Maybe I'm the only one who gets irked. Of course, nobody here. You know? I can't change anybody else, but I can change myself. And so we've been working with this book, the Raymond Charles Barker book, The Power of Decision. And once again, I feel like this has taken the science of mind philosophy, and it's so beautifully, simply laid out for us. And I've done this book basically once a year for the last couple of years, and every time I go back, I've said it before that I feel like somebody's rewritten it since I read it last, because I feel like there's some whole other understanding of it. It's just so wonderful to go back to the basics, to that truth, that we can get so complex and complicated. That's the gift that I think we've got as humans, is that we have this freedom of thought, right? We have these brains that can reason and can contemplate and can think and can ponder and can do all of these things. And it just gets us into a whole heck of a lot of trouble, as far as I'm concerned, which is good though. Because with freedom comes responsibility. I'm going to say that again. With freedom comes responsibility. And so you have freedom of thought, you have freedom of belief, but you also have the responsibility for the effects of that. The thought is the cause, and the effect of it is the experience you're having in your life. So if there's something that you don't like about yourself, if there's something that you don't like about your life, it's because we have had a part to play in it. And I don't mean that. This is the other step that gets me all mad about us having this freedom of thought, is that most people will use that truth as an excuse to beat themselves up. Right? Instead of saying, look, I can change my thought, I can change my belief, I can create something new and being excited about doing the work, they just go back over in the corner and say, see, I'm stupid and I can't figure it out and it's just, I'm never going to get this and it's just really, and then we go down that spiral into the toilet, right? And so, but that's not the whole idea here. The whole idea is that this is a philosophy of empowerment. This is a philosophy of freedom. And when we lean into being open to seeing things differently or understanding ourselves a little bit differently, then things start to unfold in a new way, and in a different way. I want to, the most basic fundamental teaching of the science of mind is that it is done unto you as you believe. This is a teaching from Jesus. As you believe, as your faith, so be it, right? And so where your faith is, there is the experience, right? It is done unto you as you believe. And Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, said that when you change your thinking, you change your life. We are sitting in the middle of possibility, and we get ourselves all tied up in the fact that we can't figure out how to get it, right? And it's sitting there right where we are. So many philosophers agree about the power of thought, and I found some, like you need more, but you've got more, you're getting more. So the Bible says that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius concluded, we become what we think about. A man's life is what his thoughts make of it. In the 19th century, Ralph Waldo Emerson found that a man is what he thinks about all day long. And his contemporary Mary Baker Eddy said, you must control evil thoughts in the first instance, or they will control you in the second. James Allen, the British author of As a Man Thinketh, wrote, you are today where your thoughts have brought you. You will be tomorrow where your thoughts will take you. And two other Britons, Thomas Carlyle and Julian Huxley, said, thought is the parent of the deed, and sooner or later false thinking brings wrong conduct. And Bishop Edward Steer, an Anglican minister in Africa, warned, do not think that which your thoughts dwell upon is no matter. Your thoughts are making you. Your thoughts are making you. There's no way that you can go through your day putting yourself down, saying you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. This is, you can't get it right, it's not going to happen. You can't have that script going on and then have something magnificent happen in your world. It can't hold it. And at the same time, you cannot know truly that you are a child of the divine. You are a child of the universe, purposeful and meaningful and important to the wholeness of this world, and think that you're not good enough. Those thoughts can't exist in the same time. We need to focus our minds on the truth of who we are. And that opens the door to all possibility, to all inspiration. And so it's important for us to be conscious of where our thoughts are taking us. And a couple of things to be aware of that Raymond Charles Barker talks about in this book are indecision and confusion. So those are the two that we're going to close up the month with today, talking about indecision and confusion. And in that, I want you to hear fear and worry, right? Indecision, which I have shared, that it has been my path sometimes, because I'm a Gemini, I realized a couple years back that finally looked at the fact that the reason why I can't, I have a tendency to not want to make a decision. Because I want all possibilities open for as long as possible. That's why I was a liberal arts major in college, right? My mom still doesn't know what it was that I graduated with. It's been 30 years, but whatever, you know. And I didn't want to, because I didn't want to close any door, you know. And that's a fear of missing out. I had FOMO before I knew it was a thing. A fear of missing out. And so often we get afraid of making a decision because we're afraid we're going to make a mistake. We're afraid that we're going to take a wrong turn. We're afraid that we're going to come off looking selfish. We're afraid that we're not going to have enough. Whatever those fears are that are operating consciously or subconsciously in our consciousness, right? It's not just our minds or our brains, right? It's the deep knowingness of your being. You're much bigger than you think you are. But it's living in there somewhere. If you are experiencing indecision as an ongoing experience, there's some deep-seated fear that needs to be addressed. But again, when you go back to the beginning and say, okay, my life is the life of God and it's unfolding in its perfect order and its divine time and its divine order, that I cannot make a mistake. You cannot make a wrong choice. How freeing is that? Now, yes, you have consequences to your choices, and you will have to experience those consequences. You will have to do that. But life is going to take you where you have come to experience, right? I've been playing with this analogy, and I wasn't going to do it, and here I am going already off on tangent there. But this week I went to we were trying to escape the heat. You know, it's hot here. And so we went out actually to the desert to escape the heat. Doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. And to the hotel that had the lazy river. Okay, so that's all I wanted for a whole day, was to just sit in the lazy river. And I don't want to worry, I don't want to think, I don't want to worry about it. I want to trust, right, that it's just going to be relaxing and lovely. And it was, actually. And I won money, too. I put $2 and I came out with 160. It was like, woo, there you go. God damn it. I tithed it. Actually, I tithed my money. Okay, just to be clear. So anyways, back to the lazy river. So I've been playing with this analogy. Now, it's not an 100% perfect analogy, but the truth is that life is the lazy river. It's going to take you where you need to go. It's going to take you, it's going to support you, it's going to guide you, it's going to allow you to go where you want to go. And how you get there is up to you. You could fight, I could sit there and fight against that current, right? Like I could sit there and try and swim the other way. There's been times in my life when I've been trying to swim the other way, right? And what's going to happen? I'm going to get pushed. Or I'm going to fight it really hard, I'm going to get really tired, and then I'm going to give up. And it's going to take me where I need to go anyways, right? Have you ever had an experience like that in your life? Hello, yes, we have. There are times when we've been trying so hard to make something happen, and then what happens when you let go? You get where you want to go. You get what you want in the end anyways. Right? And then there's these other parts of it. There's parts where the waterfall's coming down, and there's parts where there's water splitting back and forth, and there's little bubbles and things like that. Now I could handle any one of those things differently, however I want to do it. I could fight against them, or I could enjoy it. And that's the point of our life, is that when you know that you are supported by that divine river, which is God in action, in your life you are supported by that divine river that is taking you along this adventure. But if you can't trust it, if you can't surrender to it, if you can't allow its power, its current to take you where you want, all you're going to do is fight until you're tired. And we only have so much time in this life. When are we going to start trusting life? Don't wait till the end of your life to trust it. You're here for a magnificent adventure and a magnificent experience. And I don't want you to miss it. But the only way you're going to get it is by letting go of the fear and start to trust the divine. Again, what we put our attention on expands. So think about that. If you are and the generator, right, is our thought processes. So if you're focusing on your fears, what's possible, or if you're afraid constantly of what's going to happen, those are the seeds you're planting in your life. Those are the experiences you're calling forth. Because let me tell you, the universe loves you so much, it knows that you can handle anything. It knows you are stronger than you think you are more magnificent than you think you are, and so it's going to show you, you know what, you're afraid of this? Again, XYZ, fill in the fear. Here you go. Prove it to yourself. If that's the only person you're going to believe is when you prove it to yourself that you're strong enough to handle whatever that is. But you don't need to do that. You don't need to suffer through this. This life is not meant for suffering. This life is meant for expansion and creativity and joy. That's why the arts resonate with our soul. That's why music touches us so deeply. That's why when you see live theater, when you participate in something, it's moving because it's creativity in action. Because it resonates with the truth of your being. You are creativity in action. Now the other one is confusion. This is a good one. Confusion happens a lot. We get confused. I don't know what way to go. I don't know what choice to make. I don't know what to do. And that's all about worry. You know anybody who's a championship worrier? I got a couple of those in my life. I'm not going to say who they are. But they're related to me. They're very good at it. Worry, 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 worry. Okay, so let's look at that. You already can see it, right? That if you're going to spend all of your time worrying, that's using all of your creative energy, all of your focus, all of your understanding on creating what it is that you don't want. You want to know why we're living the lives we're living? You want to know why this stuff is showing up for us? It's because we are focused and on the thing we don't want. And when we're so focused on what it is that we don't want, it's only going to create itself and come forward. It's misplaced energy. Raymond Charles Barker calls it laborious thinking. I love that. Worry is laborious thinking. And so what it does is that it's an indication when you are in confusion, it means that you need to make a choice. Now I don't care if it's just going, yesterday I went to 31 flavor, I went to Ben & Jerry's. Okay, with my kid. And let me tell you, I was behind a lady who took 20 minutes to choose an ice cream flavor, right? And so if you get into a time like this, if you get into a time where you're in worry, when you're in confusion, I want you to go to Ben & Jerry's and say, I'm going to have the fish food, right? Or I'm gonna, whatever it is, the mint chocolate chip. Yes, that's what I want you to make. You have to make a decision. You need to choose something to get in the energy of knowing what it is that you want and choosing it. Being participating. And who doesn't want ice cream? It's almost August. It was 100 degrees yesterday, right? Like, so that's the thing is, but confusion means you need to make a choice. Because when you live in that place of confusion, when your mind is in that idea of worry, what happens is it fatigues your mind. It fatigues your thinking. Don't you get to the point where you get to go to bed at night and your brain hurts? That's because you're worrying too much. That the sharpness of it lessens the sharpness of our mental processes, of our clarity. And we begin to think with resistance. That's where we start to look around our life and look for proof outside of ourselves that something else is possible. And you start to say, you know what, life doesn't love me. I guess I don't get what I want. And then we start to look outside for the answer. And you're never going to find it outside. So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about my garden. So as many people know, I consider myself an expert novice gardener. And what happened was when I first got into our house about 15 years ago, we had these beautiful bricked garden planters, right? And so I decided, as my first garden, I went and did a garden plan like something for her castle, basically. Like I decided that I was going to create something like that, so there was the vegetable garden, and then we were going to have the herb garden, and then we were going to have the flowers, and all of that, and it was a mini version of it, But never having planted anything in my life, I was like, yeah, I'll do that, and laid it out. So what I did was I laid out this beautiful herb garden in a spiral, of course, because I love beautiful things, and I laid it out in the spiral, and I got all my plants and my little pathway stones, and I created my little garden with all of my things. Well, two things I didn't realize. One was my rosemary, in about 6 weeks, turned into a bush, right? Okay. And the second one is I planted mint in the ground. Those are gardeners. Those are gardeners. Okay, now if you don't know, if you're not laughing, what you need to know is mint is a weed. Okay? Mint is a weed, and you cannot get it out. Okay, once you plant it, it's there, all right? And so what I'm thinking about is that mint is the equivalent of our worry thoughts. Because what happens is it's a habit of thinking. When you get into a habit of worrying, there's some satisfaction in that, by the way. There's some satisfaction in worrying, and I'll give you that much. Because there is some satisfaction, because you can put your attention and your energy into something that you won't be disappointed by, because it's the worst case anyways, and then you just worry that it's going to happen, and then you create it, and then it just is what it is. See, I told you, I was right, And so what happens is you get into this habit of thinking, and so until you change the habit, until you change that, you can't get anything else new. And so the mint was my worry habit. Because every time I kept pulling it out, and of course I'm not going to use any weed killer in my garden, because it's my garden, right? So I'm out there digging it up, and I was literally shoveling inches of dirt out, by the way, at some point to do it. It took me 5 years. It took me 5 seasons to get rid of the mint. It took me 5 years to get rid of the mint. And the reason why that sticks with me is because it takes us some time and some focused energy to get rid of the worry. It takes some time and some focused energy to start to change our thought processes, and we are living in a time of instant gratification. Let me tell you, I could buy something and have it delivered from Amazon right now while I'm on stage, by the time I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, we have instant gratification. I get really mad if that book is not on Kindle and I want to read it right now. Give me my book, right? Like, we live in this time of instant gratification, and we don't have the patience to realize that we need to put the work in. That we need to put the work in to train our minds. We need to put the work in to realize what the truth is. And so, yes, it would be great if I gave you that one sermon that changes your life and then you never have to come back again. Of course, I'd be out of a job, which would be fine if everybody's life was transformed. That's great. But it doesn't work like that, does it? Even if we get inspired by something, even if it opens us to an understanding, we have to put that into practice. We need to work it, we need to lean into it, we need to understand how this operates for us. And so we are called to do our spiritual practice. We are called to set up our life so that we are focused on the truth of who we are. We have to realize that it's a day in, day out commitment to yourself to bring forth the best of who you are. That's why not everybody does it. That's why it's so much easier to go back and blame, to judge, to blame, and to worry. But those are pastimes that, let me tell you, are going to get you nowhere. And we are not here to get nowhere. We are here to create the life we've come here to live. And so it's like working out. We need to train our mind. We're looking for clarity. Because what happens when we are aligned, when we know the truth of who we are, what happens is this: you know, you decide, and you act. You know something, you decide, you act. We don't have to be afraid of it. So what is it going to take for you to get to a place where you know so well that you can choose what's highest for you? Again, it's like getting back into shape. What happens when you decide that you want to step up your health? First, you go see a doctor, right? Just get checked out, make sure everything's all right, right? For me, that's getting in a class. Because in class, you go deeper into the diagnostics of what's happening in your life and how to get where you want to get. Maybe you get a gym membership or and that's coming to the center. And then maybe you get a trainer, right? That's a practitioner. Because they can coach you on. They can support you and show you the places where you may be falling short a little bit. Maybe you need to do a little bit more leg work over here. Or maybe you need to do some stretching over here, or some Pilates or something, you know what I mean? That's what your coach can tell you, what your practitioner is going to tell you. You know, they're going to lovingly tell you. Have you ever considered fill in the blank? So you start, and you make a commitment to yourself of what you're going to do every day. I'm going to feed myself with good foods and juices and great things, you know? So those things that you're watching on TV, those things that you're reading, that music that you're listening to, all of it, you can shift it so it's positive and supporting you and reminding you of who you are, rather than pulling you out into a place of separation. Right, so those are, and you make the commitment that I'm going to work out every day, I'm going to take a walk every day, I'm going to move my body, I'm going to meditate anyways, because it's good for your physical body as well as your spiritual unfoldment. And so that's what we have to do. We have to commit to making our life, aligning our life to what's going to feed us, and to what's going to support us, and what's going to allow us to expand. But what it starts with is your decision. You need to make a choice for you. And you need to make a choice for the God that sent you to this life. Because let me tell you, you are an integral, important part of this. And what you have is unique and important to share with the world. And so I'm going to be your cheerleader for you to step up, to allow your mind to be the channel of goodness and of light into your experience and into the world. Because everything is possible. People say all the time, all things are possible with God, and I hear that out in the world, right? And I love that. I know what that means. Yes, all things are possible with God, but it's with God through me. We have to be responsible to be the channel for God to come through us. We're not going to be saved by somebody outside. But we have to open to hearing that true voice that's the deepest one, and it's the one that's beyond the criticism, it's the one beyond the fear, it's the one beyond the confusion, it's the one beyond any negatives that we hold about ourselves, into the true nature of that feeling of home, right, from the song. They're taking me home. Home is coming home to yourself, to the truth that you are God's divine child, and that all of the infinite universe is your birthright. And so to sum it up for the month, Raymond Charles Barker says this: to change long-standing negative habit patterns in the subconscious mind is not easy, but it can be done, and you can do it. The valley of indecision and the mountaintops of decision are both available to you. By taking authority over your own mind and emotions, you can have great mountaintop experiences. You leave behind you the valley with its shadows. You leave behind you half-living. You have assumed the responsibility of being the light to your own world. You know that you can achieve what you want to achieve. You know that all life responds to you as an infinite givingness and fills full the cup you give to it. The size of the cup you determine. You can have what you want in this world, in this life. You can have amazing mountaintop experiences, but it's up to you to believe that you can have it. It's up to you to find the place where you know that it's possible for you. Because when you touch that, when you even just touch it in consciousness, it expands. And you create what you want in this life. And that's what I want for each and every one of us. And so it is.